Okay, so this is for the PNP transistor. So this is already the existing circuit from the NPN transistor, and then we got to make it a PNP circuit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this NPN one and then show you what changes. So for one, you have to get a PNP transistor. So if you look, it's going to look exactly the same as an NPN, except that if you look really closely, if I can get it to focus, you got the 2N and then the 3906. So the difference is that ends in 06 versus 04. So the 06 is a PNP transistor and the 04 is the NPN transistor. So let's jump over here. So this is the original one for the NPN. And what we need to do is we need to change a couple of things. So what needs to change on this is, for one, the LED, well, the battery. Let's change the battery first. So changing the battery, we flip that battery around. And we make this the negative side. So negative, positive, negative, positive. And so that's the negative side. Here's the positive side. And then we jump over to the LEDs. So jump into the LEDs, we got to flip these LEDs around, because otherwise nothing would work, because we would have the negative side hooked to the positive side of the LEDs. So in the LED, you got the positive side right over here, which is called the anode. And on the other side, you got the cathode, which is the negative side. So let me flip these LEDs around. And okay, so that one's flipped. And that one's flipped as well. Okay, so there's something I'm missing. Can't forget about those little arrows. The fact that it's emitting light. Okay, so now I got those arrows. So the next thing we have to do is we have to change this transistor. So it's no longer a 04, it's a 06. And then a couple other things change. So one of them is this part of transistor. So in an NPN, the arrow goes down from the emitter. And in a PNP, the arrow goes up. So in the case of this, the arrow always points to the negative doped element. So it's a PNP transistor, rather than before it was an NPN transistor. And so the arrow pointed towards the negative doped element, rather than now it's pointing again towards the negative doped element, but the negative doped element's in the middle. So the other thing we have to change is it's 06. And so once you do that, you're going to be ready to hook this thing up. So let's do that. So let's quickly change it over here. So we got to change out the transistor. Let's disconnect the battery here first, just so we don't short anything out. And yeah, here's the fun thing is, you gotta make sure they all line up, all the different parts of the circuit here. So keep that in there. Make sure each one lines up. Okay, so now we gotta flip our LEDs. So we're flipping it. So the negative side's on the left now and the positive side's on the right. And if we look, we also flip our battery. So let me quickly do that. And again, I said the positive's on the left and the negative's on the right. So that negative side, that short side, goes back to the negative side of the battery. So all I have to do now is flip this other LED, flip it around, make sure you get those spots back in the same location. You can see, like so. Okay, so now that we've removed our NPN transistor, switched our diodes, and switched our battery, all that's left is for us to hook it up. Press the push button, and it works just like before. So that's the trick. Just, you have to, when you switch from an NPN to a PNP, you have to make sure your battery flips and your diodes flip. But the thing with this is now we're sending current to the base, and it works the opposite way. So it still works to open up the circuit. It still opens up the circuit to allow current to flow, except that current's now just flowing in the opposite direction. So we just got to make sure that if we hook it up the other way and we're using a PNP, that we flip the other elements, otherwise things won't work right. So that's how you ensure things are working right with a PNP versus an NPN, is you make sure that your diodes and your battery are hooked up correctly. And so that's the circuit for a PNP, little diode, little circuit to show you the transistors of a PNP.